Candace, I'm so excited to be chatting with you. We were talking offline a little bit before we jumped on and recorded about you live in London. I used to live in Cambridge. London's my favorite place in the world. I have organically followed you. You've organically followed the podcast. We were meant to meet. And so,
I believe it.
I believe
The
it.
stars have aligned.
Yes. So, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. We already ran down your intro about who you are, but I want to talk a little bit about what inspired you to move abroad and then to start as a business. Like now you actually have a business about that
Yeah.
decision. So, what made you decide to move abroad and then where did Candace Abroad come from?
Yeah, so it really goes back to me not really feeling like I fit somewhere. So I grew up in a very suburban town, only Black kid in most of my classes. And so kind of that feeling of too Black for the white kids, too white for the Black kids. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but
Yes.
I just kind of felt like, where do I belong? And so I think when you feel like that, you go to outside sources, whether that be alternative music and for me it was travel. It was going online and realizing like, oh my gosh, there are all these travel bloggers and travel people, and how does this work? And because I was doing all of this research, this was when I was like 17. There was a Facebook ad that popped up talking about free college in Germany, and at that point none of my family really exotic travel for us was maybe like Caribbean. And
Right.
so I didn't realize that you could even study abroad outside of, going for a semester, but it was talking about how you could study for free in Germany, like get your full degree there. And that just put me down this huge rabbit hole of like, wait. And I think my mind just expanded to the fact that I could be somewhere else and have new experiences in different destinations. And so when it came time for me to go to uni or college, I had an ad pop up for a London university. And I think because of targeting, the person at that university like tried to recruit me or did recruit me because she sent me one email and I was like, oh, yep, this is a sign, gotta go. And I had no experience with London. I just loved Bridget Jones. Like that was pretty much the only thing I knew about it. But I honestly, looking back now, especially at my life and my job, it definitely was an intuition thing. Like as soon as I heard, oh, London, okay, I gotta go. It wasn't like I needed to decide or da da da. And I think that maybe is also the advantage of having moved so young. I was 18, whereas I think obviously now if I were to move across the country, I would have a lot more questions and a lot more preparing to do. But I loved my naivety of the time. And for Candace Abroad, that started because I've always loved to write. I've always loved travel, well, since I was 18, and I love London. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was just always something in my family, in my brain. Just, I always knew it, and I didn't know how it would manifest. And essentially, when 2020 came, which I think a lot of people in the creator economy can say the same, we had a lot of time to create content if that was something that you wanted to do. And so I just dug my head deep while I was getting, what's that word when you're getting paid from your job, but you don't have to work, furlough. That's a great thing.
Yes.
When I was on furlough, and I just started learning everything I could about SEO and how to write, but for search engines. And so I started with my blog, and social media was just to promote my blog post about London. And slowly but surely that grew. I went full time within 2 years, and now it's been about 4 years now that I've been doing this full time. So yeah, I love it, but it's definitely been a journey. And I think despite the kind of picture perfect image of being a content creator and travel blogger and yada, 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 there is so much, like the tip of the iceberg is just seeing the content, I feel like. And then there's all of this stuff and personal development you have to have, and all this awareness about mental health and the content creator space and all these things that go with it. But I do love my job. So that is my long-winded story.
It's a great story, and there's so many things I want to pick off of, like jump off of from what you said. But I'll start with one. The benefits of travel is like when it gives you opportunity to see new spaces, feel new different ways, and like you said, you didn't quite feel like you fit in. You didn't feel like you fit in at many places, and I I think I meet a lot of people who traveled, and there seems to be like that kind of a thread as well. It's like you're in pursuit of a space, and maybe it's just like within yourself, but you're in pursuit of kind of finding a different way of being, and travel just opens up your world in a way that I think very few other things do. It's like, even if you can't move, like relocate and live for years, just the act of traveling, of leaving your town and going to the next town or across the state or across another country, it changes things. And what kind of things did you think it changed for you?
I think just that, like, I think when you grow up in a smaller place or, not a big city, it's very easy for the majority of people around you to be on one singular path. Living in London, or I was in New Jersey, so near New York City, the amount of different people you see, even walking down a street, is just insane. And everyone has a different life story. And I truly, truly believe that you can't be what you can't see, especially when it comes to being a travel blogger and just seeing Black women in that space. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. And so I think with any lifestyle you choose, there has to be someone that's kind of lived that lifestyle, or you got some inspiration to do it. And I think travel just gives you that to the umpteenth degree, because you're in a situation that is so new. Everyone you're meeting is so different. The culture is so different. And you just get inspired. Like, it's a really creative experience as well, because creativity, the definition of it is bringing two things together and making something new. And travel is bringing yourself and then the destination is just all these new things. And I think even if you're not someone that travels for a living or lives abroad, like, you can really take any travel experience you have, and it can, if you choose to, it can really, really make you a better person and serve as, a really good tool for personal development.
Yeah, and I think people miss that part, that traveling can really develop you as a human, and but it's not without its challenges. And that's the other part I wanted to kind of go off of. Is like, there's also been, since 2020, this expat kind of rise in, Black people, get out of here. America's not great, particularly for Americans, because we're an international audience, but leave and move abroad. And as someone who lived abroad, loved it, I tell people, when I got off the plane in England, and my mother's from there, so I'd been to England a lot of times, but when I got off the plane to live in England, I felt like I was coming home. Like, to me, that's the way I described it, is like I came home, which is why England is like my favorite place in the world. But it's not without challenges. And so while we're going to talk a lot about the benefits for the rest of these episodes, I also think we need to get out of the way. Like, you will also inherit a lot of struggle in your life if you just say, I have $20 in a dream, I'm going to Thailand. It's going to be better than the United States. Because as someone who's been to Thailand and been different places, there is just a lot of stuff you need to know. So for you, from your perspective, let's get out the way in the beginning part. What were some of the challenges that you faced while you're moving abroad, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, the tea is very important on that one, because I think that's very easy. And then I think it's easy too to think, oh, I have all these issues, or I have problems, or I have blah, blah, blah. If I move abroad, like, that will just go away. And that is not true either. I think everyone has to learn that, or will learn that at some point. I think challenges with any, like, moving abroad scenario is network and friendships. And I remember seeing this movie it was a few months ago, and they said something like, oh, I'm home wherever I am because my community's here, my friends are here. And it really hit me how much of a difference that makes. Like, you could live abroad for 20, 30 years and love the destination, but if you don't have people and make the effort to actually build a network around you, then it's going to be incredibly lonely, which at that point you may as well just be back in the States with your family. And so I think that's a huge one. Homesickness, culture shock, even just being a Black American woman. I thought when I came here, oh, Black British people, we're the same. Cool. Black and Black. It's all great. But it's a whole different culture, and I think even learning that, being very American, coming from a country, America is very America centered. We don't always take the time to focus or learn about a lot of other countries and their cultures and how they are. I think some of this is geography, because Europe, every country is so close that you kind of, they're on their foot's in your country, basically. So you really got to know about it. And so I think I learned so much, but there was also that, and I think I still feel that from time to time, of like, man, it would just be cool to be surrounded by people that look like me and are where I'm from. And I have that, I have my Black American friends and things, but I think just feeling that like, oh, I'm from here feeling. And I do get that when I'm back of America, that sense of like, oh, I belong here. And I think that's something that really isn't, because it's not like a cool thing to talk about or as Instagrammable or TikTokable as saying move abroad and forget it all, to say like, oh man, it actually is a good feeling to live somewhere where you feel like you belong to that culture. And I think that would be the biggest kind of three. And I think there's just so many little things to navigate. I mean, being in England, I'm kind of in the easy expat country because they speak English, things are similar enough to America. Obviously the UK and America have a long, long history together. But for expats that move to, say, China or Thailand or different things, I think there's this expectation that the country should bend to them, like rather than kind of assimilating to that culture, which, that's a whole thing, having to learn Thai or Mandarin and the systems. I lived in China for a little bit, so I know that that is a whole different expat experience than living somewhere a bit more easy like England. So I think there are just all these little things that need to be considered. And because a lot of people now get their moving abroad information from TikToks and short form content, you just cannot give all the advice in a short form video. Like, even if it's an amazing video, you just can't. There's hours and hours of research, looking up other people's stories, which I think is the best way to know about moving abroad rather than just, seeing a quick video. And then your own experience, like it's going to bring out things that you can't hide from your problems if you move abroad, basically. And so I think even that challenge of going somewhere, especially if you move abroad alone, which I did, it will bring out things and give you challenges that I think you need for your growth. But I also don't necessarily you think you'd have to deal with if you were in your home country. So there's a long grocery list.
No, it's very true.
Things too.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit a lot of the list. And I think the things that I want, besides the logistics, like please don't move to different countries without knowing the logistics of visas and language. And
Yeah.
even as far as I would say, just a few little plugs, legal stuff, marrying someone from a different country, having children with someone from a different country, what the custody laws are. It can be, you can opt into struggle real quick if you do not prepare. But beyond the logistic pieces, it is a very daring thing because you have to confront a lot about yourself. And if you have not done personal work, you will do it. You'll be forced to do it if you're out of your environment and where your comfort zone is. And it'll also show up for you. What are some of the things I have not addressed? Like if you are miserable in general because of like life, you will be miserable at a tropical location. Maybe it'll take a week, maybe it'll take a couple days, but you will eventually be miserable there. And so there is a level of personal preparation that you have to do when you want to relocate. And it's work you can do today. Like you don't have to wait and make it like, well, I'll personally develop myself because I'm moving to Japan or Australia or Ghana. It's like, I'm going to personally develop today. So when an opportunity presents itself, I am not having to do that while in the country, and sometimes very profoundly painful ways.
Yeah, you don't need an eat, pray, love moment. Although you can have
do that on vacation. Don't do this as a lifestyle. Like I've eat, pray, love as a vacation, but as a lifestyle, you could do that at home. And some of the lessons you need to learn, start learning them, which, if you're listening to this podcast, you're already on the journey. But I say all that to say that like now we're going to shift to talking about all the great things of living abroad and why it's fantastic and all the things. But I didn't want to not acknowledge that there are challenges. It's not something I say to people just like, well, just leave. There are challenges. And yet the challenges can be navigated and can be so worth it. So when we come back, I want to talk to Candace all about those parts. Like what are other misconceptions people think about people who move abroad? What has been the lessons you've learned and the positive things how you've grown from this experience? So more to come with Candace from Candace Abroad as we talk about how she pivoted to moving and living in London.